Okay, what if I told you a disease wasn't a germ or a virus, but a beam of light? It sounds like something straight out of science fiction, but for a time, one really radical theory proposed exactly that: a sickness made of pure light. I know it's a wild question to even ask, but believe it or not, over 1,000 years ago, long before we had any clue about germs, a very prominent scholar argued that some diseases weren't spread by touch or through the air, but as a form of, get this, pathogenic light.
So to really wrap our heads around this, we have to go back in time. And I mean way, way back. Long before microscopes, long before germ theory, all the way to the 8th century, to meet the person who came up with this incredible idea.
The person behind this theory was Imam Jafar al-Sadiq. Now, you have to remember, this was an era when most people figured you got sick from bad smells or maybe as some kind of divine punishment. But he came along and proposed something totally different: a physical, even if it sounds strange to us, mechanism for how diseases could spread. Okay, so how on earth was this supposed to work? The theory itself was called viral radiance, which, you have to admit, is a pretty cool and almost poetic name for a theory about getting sick. At its heart, the theory is actually beautifully simple. Al-Sadiq suggested that certain illnesses literally give off a type of light. And if this pathogenic light hits a healthy person, poof, they get sick. Just think about that for a second. That would mean the disease could travel at the speed of light. The whole process is just a simple chain reaction. A sick person basically becomes a beacon of their illness. Their sickness radiates out as light, and, well, anyone in its path is at risk. It's a vision of contagion that doesn't need any physical contact at all.
Now, to really appreciate just how revolutionary, or let's be honest, how bizarre this theory was, we really need a little context. What was everyone else thinking about diseases at the time?
And this timeline really puts it all into perspective. For centuries, the main idea was that bad smells, or miasmas, were what carried sickness. Then, bam, you get al-Sadiq's theory of light in the 8th century. And after that, it would be another 1,100 years before we finally landed on our modern germ theory with microbe. So this shows a gigantic leap in thinking. The whole miasma theory was based on something you could at least perceive, right? A bad smell. But al-Sadiq's theory was suggesting a cause that operated on a completely different physical principle, one that was totally invisible to our senses. And if you compare it to our modern germ theory, yeah, viral radiance sounds truly far off. We eventually found a physical agent, the microbe, and we figured out the concrete ways it travels through water and air and insects. Al-Sadiq's theory, on the other hand, was proposing this non-physical, radiant agent. So with an idea that was either way ahead of its time or maybe just way out in left field, how was it received? What did history and science actually make of this idea of pathogenic light? Well, the verdict from history is pretty clear. Both back then and right now, the scientific consensus could basically be summed up in a single word: nonsense. So, the really crucial question is why it was dismissed. Biologists pretty much labeled it a myth because all the scientific observation we had pointed in a completely different direction. You know, once we could actually see microbes under a microscope and trace their paths through direct contact, through water, air, and insects, there just wasn't any room left for a theory about pathogenic light. It just didn't match the evidence we were finding. But even though the theory of viral radiance was basically put on a shelf and forgotten in the footnotes of history, it leaves us with a really fascinating question about the nature of knowledge itself. You know, history is just full of ideas that were considered completely ridiculous at one point, but later became accepted science. Now look, viral radiance probably isn't one of them, but it does force us to ask the question, what are we dismissing as nonsense today that future generations might look back on and see as totally obvious? It's a really humbling reminder that our understanding is always evolving.